Section 2.3 is solving multi-step equations part 2. When solving with equations with fractions, we want to clear each fraction by multiplying each term by the least common denominator. So we want to look at all three denominators. The least common multiple, which is the same thing as least common denominator, is 28. So we are going to multiply each term by 28. Now we cross reduce. 7 goes into 28 4 times. 4 times a negative 3 is a negative 12 is equal to 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. And then cross reduce here. 2 goes into 28 14 times. 14 times a negative b. Be very careful about that. It's a negative 14b, or you can write it as minus 14b. Now we're going to subtract 21 on both sides. Negative 12 and negative 1, when the sides are the same, we add and get negative 33 is equal to negative 14b. Divide both sides by negative 14. Negative divided by negative is a positive. I cannot reduce that, so it just stays 33 over b. Example 3b, I'm going to multiply each term by the least common denominator, which in this case is going to be 6. 6 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 5k is 5k. Plus 3 goes into 6 two times. 2 times 2 is 4 is equal to 3 goes into 6 two times. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract 4 on both sides. 5k is equal to 4. Divide both sides by 5. And my answer is 4/5. Usually when you have a problem that starts out with fraction, you're probably going to get a fraction for an answer. Okay, try to do this one. Turn off the recording, try to do it, and then turn it back on. Number 1, I'm going to turn 6 into a fraction by putting it over 1, because every single term has to be in a fraction form. Then I'm going to multiply each term by the least common denominator, which is 6. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 times 1x is 3x. Plus 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Is equal to 1 goes into 6 6 times 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract 14 from both sides. So that's 3x is equal to 22. Divide both sides by 3. 3 doesn't go into 22 evenly. You can leave it 22 over 3. You do not have to turn it into a mixed number. If you do, that's okay, but it's not necessary. Example 3c. Now this one has decimals. If we move our decimals at the end, that is the same thing as multiplying it by a power of 10. If you move your decimal one place, that's the same thing as multiplying it. If you move it 2 places, that's the same thing as multiplying it by 100. Now the very first term, I only need to move it 1 time to get it to the end. But the second term, I need to move it 2 times. And the other side of the equal sign, I need to move it 2 times. So we have to be consistent. So we are going to multiply everything. We're going to move the decimal 2 places, which is the same thing as multiplying by 100. So on the 2.5, I'm going to fill in a 0, make it 250x, plus move the decimal 2 places, that's 45 is equal to 95. Now we just have a simple equation with no decimals. We'll subtract 45 on both sides. That's 250 is equal to 40. Oh, that's 250x. Divide both sides by 250. Now, right here, fast thing to do is reduce or cancel the zeros. Now 4 over 25. 4 minus 5, that's a 50. Okay, now we need to divide 20, go to the side and divide 20 into 5. You are going to use a decimal here, so we're going to add a decimal and 1 0. And 25 goes into 52 times. So your answer is 0.2. So in this case, because the original problem was in decimal form, we would leave it in decimal form. Example 4, Hiroshi is buying a pair of water skis that are on sale for 2/3 of the original price. Hiroshi is buying a pair of water skis that are on sale for 2/3 of the original price. After he uses a $25 gift certificate, the total cost before taxes is $115. What was the original price of the skis? Write an equation for the problem. Okay, all we know is that he paid 2/3 of the original price. Do we know what the original price is? That is X. But he paid 2/3 of X. And then he used a $25 gift certificate. So after he used a $25 gift certificate, the total cost was $115. So there's the equation. Now to solve it, I would not clear your fractions. I would just add 25 to both sides. The 2/3 X is equal to 140. Then I would multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is 3 over 2. Okay, cross reduce. 2 goes in 140 70 times. So X is equal to 70 times 3 is 210. And that is $210 is the original price. Example 4B, Lynn read 3/4 of a graphic novel over the weekend. Monday he read 22 more pages. If he has read 220 pages, how many pages does the book have? Well, he read 3/4 of the graphic novel over the weekend. Do we know how many pages the novel is? No, it's X. But he read 3/4 of the book of X. Then, on Monday, he read 22 more, so we're going to add 22. Is equal to the total number of pages that he's read is 220. Now we're going to subtract 22 from both sides. So that's 3/4 X is equal to is 8. Make that 11. 11 minus 2 is 9. And bring down the 1. Now we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, 4 over 3. Put the 198 over 1. Now I'm going to cross reduce. 3 goes into 198, I think. I'm not sure. I'm going to go to the side and divide. $66 times. And then I have to multiply 66 times 4. $264 pages. So always check to make sure your answer makes sense. And that's about right. That makes sense. So the book has 264 pages. Consecutive integers are integers in counting order, such as 4, 5, 6, so on, so on. So right here, if we had, we're going to delete this column. Consecutive integers. The first integer is n. The second integer will be n plus 1. And the third would be n plus 2. Then the next would be n plus 3, and so on and so on. consecutive integers, the first integer is n. The second integer, to go from one even integer to the next even integer, you count by twos. So you would add 2. And then the third integers, you add 2 more to n, so that would be n plus 4. The next would be n plus 6, and so on and so on. And here's the tricky part, the odd integers. Again, you always start with n for the first integer. To go from one odd integer to the next odd integer, you also count by twos. For example, if you had a 3, the next odd integer is 5. So what did you have to do? You added 2. And then you would add 2 more. It is not n plus 1 and n plus 3. It is not that for consecutive odd integers. Think about it. To go from one odd integer to the next, you count by twos. Example 5, write an equation for the following problem, then solve the equation to answer the problem. Find 3 consecutive odd integers with the sum of negative 51. Okay, we're going to make the box. The box is very easy. It's how many integers? 3. So first integer, second integer, third integer. The first integer is always n. Now we're consecutive odd integers. So to go from one odd integer to the next odd integer, you count by twos. So n plus 2. The third would be adding 2 more, which would be n plus 4. Now you're going to get the information from this column, and we're going to, sum means to add, so we're going to add them up. N plus the second integer, which is n plus 2, plus the third integer, which is n plus 4, is equal to negative 51. We're going to combine like terms. N plus n plus n is 3n, plus 2 plus 4 is 6, is equal to negative 51. Subtract 6 on both sides. That's 3n is equal to negative 57. Divide by 3. I'm going to go to the side and divide. 3 goes into 57. 19 times, so n is equal to negative 19. So now we're going to fill in the last column. N is negative 19, which is the first integer. The second integer is negative 19 plus 2, which is negative 17. And the third is negative 19 plus 4, which is negative 15. Now, a way to check is add up these 3 digits, and they all 3 better add up to negative 51. Example 5b, find 3 consecutive integers with the sum of 21. Set up the chart and then make sure you have it correctly. Notice that 3 consecutive integers, that means one right after the other. So the first integer is n, the second is n plus 1, and the third is n plus 2. So we're going to add these up and put them equal to 21. Combine, that's 3n plus 3 is equal to 21. Subtract 3 on both sides. Divide by 3. And n is equal to 6. So the first integer is 6, the second one is 7, and the next is 8. And again, you can check by adding 6 plus 7 plus 8, and it better add up to 21. Example 5c, find 3 consecutive even integers whose sum is 78. Again, set it up and the equation. The first integer is n, the second integer is n plus 2 because we're counting by even, and the third is n plus 4. So there's the equation. Again, combine your like terms. That's 3n plus 6 is equal to 78. Subtract 6. That's 3n is equal to 72. Divide by 3, and 3 goes into 72 24 times. So the first integer is 24, the second is 26, and the third is 28.